All right, Michael Van Runkle here with HotCars.com. Today I've got my hands on a BMW i3, so I'm not going to be up in the canyons reviewing a sports car or a classic. Instead, I've got the i3 in its natural habitat here in the city. This is one of the greatest city cars on the market today. The thing is, depreciation has hit the i3 super hard, so BMW is basically giving these things away. You can get one for about 15 grand, certified pre-owned with an extended warranty. You can pay a little bit more for the range extender model to get basically a 2-cylinder gasoline engine that serves as a generator and gives it 80 more miles or so. Now the i3 has a little bit of a weird design. It kind of looks like a Panda robot helmet or something. But it's also got a lot of cool engineering details, a ton of carbon fiber used. This is a 2015 i3, all electric, no range extender. Let's take it for a drive and check it out. In the meantime, please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. On the interior, the i3's futuristic design aesthetic really comes through. This car was introduced as a concept in 2011, along with the i8, to sort of point a new direction for BMW. And it really shows with all the details here. We've got hemp used in the doors. We've got this sustainable wood dash that looks great and feels great. It's got amazing texture. The whole thing is light and airy. The seats are narrow backed. The sustainably sourced leather hides feel good and they've worn pretty well. This is a 2015 i3. And it should be the base model, which means it should have a range of 81 miles, though, as we'll see, that's pretty dubious. It weighs 2,635 pounds, allegedly, thanks to all the carbon fiber. It's got the standard electric car aluminum skateboard, and it doesn't have the range extender engine, which, in the current versions, the most well-equipped i3 weighs over 3,000 pounds. That affects efficiency somewhat, but improvements in battery technology have helped the i3 so much. This 2015 would have been rated at 81 miles. The newest all-electric i3S can do, they claim, 153, or 200 even with the range extender. Now, I charged this car all night last night on a normal home plug, and to its credit, it gained 40 miles of range, which is pretty good. But with 100% charge, even in Eco Pro mode, which you can select down here, it's still saying it's only got 61 miles of range, which is about 3/4 of what the claimed range would have been new. Now, it is a 5-year-old car, so that's a consideration. And people who are looking to buy one of these now can be getting like a 2017 or a 2018 with more range on tap than this car. But let's take it for a drive and see how it drives, because it's actually pretty impressive how it does in the city. It's no Tesla, that's for sure, and there are some weird quirks that I have to point out as we do this. So, of course, it's a modern car, so it's a push-button start. The thing that I probably dislike about the car the most is this whole gear shifter lever situation. Whatever happened to just having a normal selector here, or one that went like this, like it's a pickup truck? Instead, we've got this weird function where I have to sort of reach like this to turn it on, and then select drive by pushing that forward. As you might have noticed, it did not go into drive. Still not going into drive. Oh, it's because I have to push the start button twice. Interesting. Now we're in park. Now put it in drive. I'm gonna select Eco Pro mode, Eco Pro Plus mode, so that we can get, yeah, so now it's at 98% and it's showing 60 miles. But Eco Pro Plus also means we've got no climate control in here, which is not exactly ideal given all the glass, the long dash, but it gets me the most range, and I'm a little bit nervous about taking this car for an extended test drive and running out of battery before I get home. Pulling out onto the road, you can hear going over some speed bumps. The car is pretty quiet, just like most electric vehicles. It doesn't have the same sort of audible whine that a Tesla does, only a little bit when you really push it. Now, one thing that I do really like about the i3 is the fact that the regenerative braking pretty much means you don't have to use the brake pedal at all. I'm pulling up to this stop sign. I had to use the brake pedal a little, but I'm still getting used to it. In reality, you should be able to do this, and you sort of just start letting off the gas a little here. Hopefully you can see it in this camera. And there, I just came to a complete stop, lucky because the cop is watching, without even touching the brakes, which is really cool. It takes a little bit of finesse and getting used to. Really, by the time you're about 7/8 off the accelerator pedal, you're already braking, and the brake lights do turn on even if you don't touch the brake pedal, which is a nice safety detail. There we went over some more speed bumps. You can tell the car rides pretty smooth. It does have a short wheelbase compared to the Model 3, which I've noticed it does make the steering a little twitchy. But part of the steering fun comes from the fact that this car has 19-inch wheels that are like 6 inches wide. They're 195 wide. That makes the i3 the only car ever to have used 19-inch wheels that are that narrow. Here we go into a little bit of a curve here by Santa Monica Airport. And coming down through this bend, there is a little bit of body roll, but not much. It's a tall car, but like most electric cars, all the weight is down at the bottom, and we're powering up this hill. The i3 uses a single speed transmission, and it's rear wheel drive only, like the base Tesla Model 3. There is no all-wheel drive i3 with a dual motor situation. It's only got one motor, and for those thinking, well, what about the range extender? The range extender isn't really a gasoline engine, it's a generator. It's 2 cylinders, and at the top of Topanga Canyon, about a week ago, I was riding my bicycle, and an i3 with the range extender passed me by, and because it was at the top of a big mountain, I think it had kicked in, and it really just sounded exactly like a lawnmower. Not exactly the noise you want to hear when you're driving your super fancy, super luxurious electric car, but when you're going through town and ideally only using electric power, you won't hear it at all. In the meantime, here I am practicing coming up to a stop sign, and I had to use the brakes a little bit. I'm gonna turn up, try and get on a bigger road, see if we can get some speed going. The i3, it is fast, even with those super narrow tires. It's punchy off the line, and you can get the traction control to kick in real quick, like I did just then. But of course, when you punch it, even here in Eco Pro Plus mode, it has the little dial that shows you whether you're charging or you're using power. And as soon as you're in anything past 50% of the throttle pedals travel, you're maxed out on how much power you're giving the electric motor. Now, I haven't driven this car a ton, so I haven't been able to really tell how much the range is affected by how you drive. I know that switching from Eco Pro Plus to Eco Pro immediately reduces 3 miles of range. Switching then into comfort mode reduces another mile. That's really not bad. So from 59 to 55, you can see it shows up on here, but now I've got a little bit of airflow from the climate control system, which is nice. The layout here is very nice. We've got a screen there and a screen here. The i3 was one of the first cars to use all LCD screens for all of its displays. We don't have a physical tachometer or anything. Obviously, it's an electric car, and a tach is kind of pointless. I like the steering wheel size. It makes it feel a little bit like a go-kart, but it is firm and touchy. I don't know if a mode can be activated to adjust the steering weight. This is a pretty base model, so I doubt it, but maybe in a higher spec i3, you'd be able to have adaptive suspension or steering weight adjustment. Here we get going. It's a quiet ride. You know, the low profile tires on the 19-inch wheels, they might be better for aerodynamics, but I don't know if it wouldn't be better to have some higher profile tires on smaller wheels just to try to achieve some of that smooth ride that made the Tesla Model 3 rear wheel drive so nice in town. Here I can punch it around. We're following a Chevy Bolt, but that just brought up another little detail that I really don't like about this i3 and also about BMW's new cars in general. The turn signal stays on. It's one of these systems where it doesn't have the satisfying click when you turn the turn signal on. It just goes down and then back up on the stock. And so it's on, but it didn't click. And so when you turn the steering wheel, sometimes it turns on, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it turns off, sometimes it doesn't. And then sometimes when you go to turn it off, it's so sensitive that now you were going right, but now you've turned on your left-hand turn signal. It's just one of those things. Maybe I would get used to it. I've driven a new 3 Series a fair amount, and after hours, days of driving it, I did not get used to it, and I don't think I would here. Again, that's an example of what was wrong with turn signal stocks as they used to be designed, or was this just another way that BMW wanted the i3 to seem extremely fancy and futuristic? Green light, let's punch it, see how fast it goes. It pushes you back into the seat pretty well. And in that way, it's not quite like a Tesla in that the power isn't instantaneous. The i3 does seem like it gains more power once you've gotten going. It's not that instantaneous punch of torque like on a Tesla, but once it's fully, I don't know, it's not revved up, but it feels like revved up. Once it's going, you feel like you're gaining additional power. That might be a traction thing with the tires. I'm not really sure. But there's no doubt this car has plenty of power. So this car, being an earlier model, would have been rated at 170 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. The newer models, let's see if the turn signal turns off. It did. The newer models are rated at 186 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. I could see a 10% gain making a little bit of a difference, but those cars also weigh a fair amount more. You're getting into over 3,000 pounds with the range extender model, and that makes it sort of against the point of having a super lightweight city car like the i3 that's roomy on the inside, compact on the outside, easy to park, and just fun to drive in town. I'm really impressed by it. Overall, another complaint I might have is it's got the typical extremely long dash that automakers have seemed to become extremely big fans of in the modern era. Now, I don't know if just moving this forward, moving the whole dash forward would have been a good idea, give a little bit more room to the back seats. As it is, I've got a ton of leg room, and I've got the seat maybe halfway forward at 6'1" with long legs. I can scoot this thing so far back I can't even reach the accelerator pedal and the brake pedal, which you're not supposed to use at all anyways, so that wouldn't be the problem. Now, I got interested in the i3 back when it first came out because I went to the Mastro's Ocean Club steak restaurant on the PCH with my girlfriend for our anniversary. And we were surrounded by, you know, Porsches, Ferraris, Lamborghinis. We pulled up in our old Audi, and I handed the keys to the valet, because it's valet parking only, of course. And I asked him, looking around at all the cars, what is your favorite car that you've driven? And he said, to my surprise, it was the BMW i8, which was new at that time. And he said from the interior to the exterior and how it drove, that was his favorite car he'd ever driven. That got me thinking, you know, BMW has this new futuristic design aesthetic, which admittedly is a little bit odd, but they're sort of going the same route that Toyota went with the second generation Prius. Sorry, there's a truck here, not going. With the second generation Prius. Everyone forgets the first generation Prius was based on the Echo, itself a pretty ugly car. The second generation Prius took things to a whole new level and made it so that the Prius stood out from the crowd as a statement car about being eco-friendly and eco-conscious. And that made it extremely popular here in West LA. I think BMW is attempting to do something similar with the i8 and the i3. There's no question these cars look like nothing else on the road. Even here we are, you know, 9 years later after the debut of the concept and 7 years after the cars themselves hit the road. The i3, of course, doesn't have the same panache as an i8, which is a mid-engine supercar with 3 electric motors, all-wheel drive, and a 3-cylinder gasoline engine that makes it a true hybrid electric, not the kind of all-electric that the i3 is, or the kind of generator-powered gasoline hybrid combo that the i3 with the range extender is. The i8, however, you know, it's just not powerful enough. BMW had to cancel it earlier this year, which was kind of sad. They could have revamped it and kept it going and maybe given it a, you know, a 4-cylinder engine and a couple hundred more horsepower, and that would have done the trick. But I think sales were just floundering. I think they planned to cancel the i3 and eventually decided not to because it is such a good city car. Now, you compare the i3 to a Prius next to me, I'm sitting up a lot higher, but this is an all-electric car. The wheelbase is shorter, and I know from a fact of driving a lot of Priuses, the interior of this car is on a whole different level of quality and luxury and comfort than the Prius. And that's really what makes it so impressive, that you can get one of these with so much depreciation already factored in. When they were new, even the 2015 models, these things cost $45,000 to $60,000. So getting one with a certified pre-owned warranty that extends the factory warranty of 4 years, 50,000 miles by another year with unlimited miles, and all the hybrid components have an 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty. So you get one for 15 grand, you put a little down payment down, and you're paying a couple $100 a month. You don't have to pay for gas, you can plug it in at your house if you have either a wall outlet or a supercharger. BMW has a map setting built into the nav that will find you chargers nearby. I live in Santa Monica, so there are a lot of them, although I have found that the maps are not entirely accurate. And I know that because my girlfriend had a Fiat 500e for a couple years there that was just a nightmare. That car, they claimed it had something like 90 miles range. In reality, she never got more than 40. When the dealer sold it to her, I'm doing the turn signal thing again. When the dealer sold her the 500e, they pointed out on a map that there was a charging station less than a block from our house, under construction at the time. Unfortunately, it was never built, and at the time we only had street parking at our apartment, so she was running an extension cord out across the sidewalk. That car would charge maybe 6 or 8 miles worth of range if she left it plugged in all night long. That's not nearly as good as this i3, which I plugged in all night long last night and got about 40 miles of range charged up. Now, dealing with the difference between 40 miles with a full battery or 60, I'm still feeling a little bit of range anxiety in the i3. I would really prefer to have a range extender model if I was thinking about buying one of these. You know, the difference between 80, 123 for the brand new i3S, and 200, even 170 to 200, that's a huge difference. That's the difference between being able to drive all over LA, let's go downtown, let's go to the valley, let's go to the beach, and not being able to without thinking, okay, let's go downtown and find a Whole Foods parking lot to charge. Let's go to the valley and go visit Cal State Northridge, where they have a whole charging bank. Let's go to the beach, and we have to go park in Santa Monica because they've got free chargers, but you're probably going to get a parking ticket from the parking Nazis in Santa Monica. I personally, I don't think that 60 miles of range is enough. That's just my life. I don't commute for work, I drive for pleasure. If I had a 2-mile commute to work, 5-mile commute to work, even a 20-mile commute to work, and they had a supercharger in the lot, or if I had a nice, 220 volt charger at home, I would be sitting pretty. I'd feel comfortable driving this car on a daily basis. It drives really well. It's punchy when you need it. You can go fast. I do worry about replacing tires in terms of ownership, not leasing the car, since those tires are literally model specific, and the i3 is the only car that has ever used them. On the other hand, the ownership costs being limited to probably tires and rarely even brakes, given how much the regenerative braking works. There's another i3. I think it could be a pretty good bet for the money. I went shopping for a Model 3 with a friend who wanted my professional opinion, and he was quickly climbing up. You know, they start at sub 30s with the rebates that you can get and the base models, and all of a sudden you want the dual motor because it's so much faster, and you want to get the autopilot, and it climbs and it climbs and it escalates, and you're paying closer to 40. You're leasing for $500 or $600 a month. They tell you, think about the cost of ownership, and you don't have to worry about gas ever. But in reality, that's a little too much for what is essentially an entry-level commuter car in my mind. Getting one of these sub 20, that's the way to go. And you're not going to have quite the same kind of range, or you're not going to have autopilot. But I find this car to be much nicer on the inside. An i3 at half the price sounds like a pretty good bet to me, especially because this is a little bit more of a usable car with the suicide rear hinging doors, the big airy interior. A Tesla does have good leg room, but so does this car. And really, for the price, I'm pretty blown away. The question is the Tesla worth more for another 100, 150 miles of range? That's a lifestyle choice. For me, if you're getting a city car, you might as well get one of these, but that's just based on my opinion. And I will admit that I do feel a little bit of range anxiety, even though our range actually just went up from 57 to 58 while sitting there at the stoplight. I don't know how that's possible, but it gives me a little bit of hesitation about what the car is actually giving us back as feedback. How many miles does it have left if you start driving it on the freeway? How many miles do you have left if you're just tooling around town? That's something you have to get used to living with an i3, and it's something that I haven't been able to get used to or feel comfortable with just driving it for a day or two here, borrowing it, as my girlfriend's Fiat is, of course, in the shop. I'm gonna head home and plug this thing in, even though we're still at 84% battery allegedly. I'm feeling good about the car. If I was in the market for a city car, this would probably be top of my list. Yeah, it looks a little funky on the outside, but so does a Chevy Bolt. And the interior more than makes up for that, in my opinion, just in terms of quality and design, space, comfort, and features. For the money, I don't think that you could do better with an electric car than the BMW i3, but that is, of course, just my opinion. Thank you for watching, and please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep doing car reviews like these.